So we were at the point where we did what we were looking for, and in fact we read the file from the computer, from our computer. We get this simple text file, and however, what we did was to put all the stuff in the main. And the main B is a class that has a field which is an array list. That was a novelty of the last class. The use of array list instead of simpler structure like doubles or a vector of doubles. But what we want to do is to get all this stuff here arranged in method of a class. And this is what we do in main B1. Let's look at what the main B1 does. Main itself doesn't have any field here, because all the fields are here included in the class that we are going to implement. We still give the file name inside the main. The file name where we have the data. Obviously, this is in general a problem, because either you do a main with the name of the class written inside, and you have to compile it. Instead, if you want to parameterize, you have to do maybe a combination of things, meaning that this name of the file you can read from the console, and then so you give the input from, let's say, the new program that you are doing. You give the input of the file that you need to read by console. Otherwise, you can establish, for instance, there is a certain file name with a given name which contains itself this information. Meaning, when you start your program, it knows that maybe your program is named Mary. I don't know. And you know that when the Mary program starts, it knows that it goes to go to see a Mary .mary file, for instance, where the name of the file that you have to read is contained, or this information that otherwise you have to do in some other way. And this is the first thing. The other thing is that okay, here we create a new class which is get double zero. Then we go to see what this get double zero is. Here you see red double is a get double underscore zero class. It has a method which is red data. This method return a text, return an object, evidently, of the type get parameters from file 1. And this get parameters from file 1 has a field which is text. And on this field we call a method, because this field is a string, evidently, or an array of strings, actually. And there is a method size that gives the number of lines or the number of elements in the array list. I will try to use this piping way of giving commands. And this is, let's say, considered a modern way to do the commands. Nesting commands and fields coming from classes in order to produce a result. And this obviously has some influence on how you program the classes, because you have to decide that the reusable red data return something. Okay, in particular, red data text, which is the field, returns something, which is an array list, as you see, of strings. Otherwise, you don't put. You can avoid. You have ways to avoid to put a return in the method on a return, but if red data, we don't. You not need to return anything here, because red data text is simply a public um, field of the class, and you execute size over of it. The first thing that we do here is reusable is our class, is our getDouble0 class, the one that you see here. And there is a method in the getDouble0, which is read data into strings. I give the file name, read the whole file name into strings. There is a second method which says skip lines. Now, with this command here, I simply skip lines from line number 0 from line number 4. As you see here, that header lines is 4, because I know that there are 4 header lines. And now what I do is here I simply read one integer. I get the class, I get red data, I get the test, I get the 4 line of the test. In this 4 lines that I had not read before, is contained the number of elements, which is 3 in this case, that I have in the file. So here I am reading the number of lines that I have in the file, and here with this command I am printing, and now I am reading the next one. I am just inside here. I am reading the 5th line and printing it out. Finally, I read the contents of the file. Here I have a method which is contents, and I say read double contents from either lines +2 because one lines contain comments and one lines contain the number of lines from line +2 to array length, meaning to the end of what I have stored. I am here reading, getting the number of the double data, the number of lines that I have in the data, which is 3, and here I am printing again. Finally, if you remind what we were doing, we decided the operation we were doing on each line was just summing the values on the line. So we have a bag of data with three lines. In each lines there are a different number of elements, and I sum the elements. I give the results. Here actually I implemented two classes as I did the last time, and in the first class I just simply do the sum. Here I do the sum and also allocate a double, which I return here, a double vector where I put the sums. And here I print the values of the sum. Finally, I do the last operation. I get the file name. Here I hard coded actually the file name of the output with the whole path, and I use another method that I put in the file to write on the output file name the sums. So, and finally I end the computations. So let's go to see a few things here. Open file, and what I am going to see is what the simple file is. Okay, this is the simple file, and let's see also what is the output file, which is if you compare here 3 plus 4 is 7 plus 5 is 12, 7 plus 8 is 15, and plus 9 24. So you see 12 24 and the third sum. I also put here in the open file a text to explain what it is. So we can go here and execute. Okay, and this is the execution of all the main that you see you see before. I am highlighting this way because for printing the array list, I am using a special version of the println method, and in fact I say take sums which are double here, convert to strings, and do an array, and println takes also arrays. In that case, it prints exactly the way you see here, which is maybe not the way you want to have it printed. So if you want to have it printed in a different way, you have to do a different procedure. So we are now using get double. The main thing of this main is that we are using the get double 0 class. So let's go and open the get double 0 class. Okay, in the get double simple 0 class, you just see the things that we already listed before, and we have the fields of the class, which is an array list of doubles. So we contain the data, and it also contains a get parameter from files 1, which is called red data. The other field is red data. get parameters from file one in turns is this class here. So from the main, we call the class get double zero, but then the class get double zero as a field, the class get parameters from file. The gets parameters from file underscore one uses the scanner to read all the thing. One part that I mentioned to you before is that the get parameter from file one is structured in a way to return a value, in particular to return the address of this class that we are treating. So we can do the nested type of commands that I showed you before. As a methods, we have a skip lines. I need a method to skip lines because I have to skip the header, and from line to line. And as you see, this is a simple method that implements just a simple for cycle, and also this method also print out. So when you see here this is the okay. It is for each line is reading the line here. So you see in the console here the line somewhere the line no, we don't see. Okay. Okay, yes, you see, because it is this one. It just reading the line, but it is printing the line it is skipping. Oh, okay. Okay, that's the first method. Read data into strings. I just give the file name as a string here. And this read data with file is a get parameters from file type. And if you go to get parameters from file types, this has two fields, and one field is the file name with path. Here I put the name, standard name, simple file text file, but I can also leave it empty if you want. I just put for there is no reasons to have this assignment here. Actually, this is kind of a default file. So there is a file name with path, and in fact I am substituting here the file name which I gave as default with the file name I am giving in input here. Then I use the read data, meaning the get parameters from file read file data method, and this read the file data method into an array list of strings. I have another class which is reading the contents. The method, sorry, I am reading the contents. And you already saw this code actually last time, because is more or less the same code with some little variation if you compare of the code that you have seen in the main B. Here there are a first loop on the array length and the second loop along the strings contained in each one lane. and this is creating the data, and is adding the data here after having created here as doubles, reading the strings, converting to doubles, and finally here putting in the get the double zero field. I have here the method for doing the sum. Very simple method. And here I have the method to do the sum and put the results in a vector. In that way, I can use it later. In fact, the do and store sum here, which is a public method that return a double vector. And what I do is say, I have a double vector, which is of length size that I give as input here. I have a counter here, and then for any double vector that I have in array inside the get double underscore zero double data, first I print this one, then I do the sum of the values. I have this counter. I update the counter, and finally I return the double vector. Write into a file. I give simply the write into a file. I have to input two things. In the which is one is the output file name, which is here, and the other is the vector where I put the sum. As you know, I could have an alternative here to declare this sum here somewhere here as a field, and so I could have accessed it from here if I have declared here, but you know, I don't thought that was useful, so I kept inside, and I prefer to pass as a reference here to the method. But there are alternatives, obviously. So here I use the class file to open the new file. Here I check if the file already exists, and if it exists, I rename it with .old. Then I use buffered writer to write it. This is the first string. Okay, hello new file. I declare a buffered writer, and here I use the decorator to opening a new file writer and sending to a buffered writer in order to buffer what I am reading, and then I write the string. Now here I have just to write the values. So for any values in the vector sums, I write the values. I find this way to do the loops very elegant, actually, but we have other ways to do loops in Java. Every time you open a writer or you open a reader, you have to close it, and here we close. Get double zero also has this. We have to overwrite the standard constructor. In the standard constructor, what we do is we allocate the get parameters from file one type, which enter here as field. Okay, we have this get parameters from file one. So here we are allocating the space for that type of structure here. Whatever variable I declare dynamically, or which is, for instance, a vector of data or an array list or so, I have also to create the space for it. In particular, here I use get parameters from file one, the standard constructor. In fact, you see here that get parameters from file one doesn't have a real constructor. Here I use I use another class, which is read file data, to really create the object. And here in get double zero, also I allocate the array list of doubles, which is here. So what I do in the constructor is just allocating the space for the two fields. As I said a few seconds before, anytime I do something, I have to allocate the space for it. So here we are seeing how we are doing get parameter, all the stuff. Obviously, this is not a simplification with respect get parameters, what you see in main B, in the sense that you have this more or less the same amount of code that we have before. I just translated into class. What we have is a more declarative way to do the main. The other thing is that the main is obviously always tied to a specific task. Instead, get double zero and get parameters from file are quite general in their reading. I can read any bag of double in the same way, so I can reuse all these two classes in future if I want to read other files. And the design is pretty general. I don't have to recreate this same code other times. Instead, if I take this one, I have to repeat all the code again in the new main eventually. So it is a simple things, but it's a thing that affects the design of my programming. When I do programming, maybe I can start with a very procedural way, populating the main, doing experiments on the various on the use of the various classes of the libraries that I can have for doing something, and then I can refactor all, putting in a specific classes the work I did, and for later reuse of what I have done. So now let's go to a different field. So maybe we can stop here for these things and then go to the new things in the to see the new things in another lesson.